Warning, F-bombs are armed and maybe drop, because that's always the way it is around here. All right, I've been gone for a little bit. A series of unfortunate events struck me starting right at Thanksgiving of 2023. I'm in a live stream and I'm being told no sound. What do you mean, no sound? I don't know what's going on. I really don't. My computer is refusing to connect sound to streams, to StreamYard, to YouTube, to basically anything I can think of. But the weird thing is, it is connecting to Discord and to VoIP, internet phone. So we don't know what's going on. The technician actually had the thing plugged in, and yes, the microphone's receiving sound, but the browser isn't transmitting it in internet mode. So we don't know what's going on. We can't figure this out. So right now, I'm using my phone just to get this out. Y'all know I do car thoughts from time to time, and unfortunately, one of them kind of got out there. Okay. All right. I want to start with a bit of a rant. Common courtesy is apparently an uncommon thing. When I was working security at that California State building, the one I got fired from, we had one door. We had one delivery guy. Every delivery person has to check in with security, right? That's just the rule. Okay, fine. I understand this rule. We had a lobby that was not secured, but there was one door that was secured for no particular reason. That didn't make sense to anybody. All right, and everybody at one point or another had commented, why is west door, I think it was, west lobby door, why is that secured but the rest of them are all open? All right, whatever. We had one delivery guy who would use the west lobby door, so he'd have to hit the button, the call button, so that we could open it for him. This was a day after day thing. All right, he came every day. He made essentially the exact same deliveries, and about the same time, within about 5 minutes. He would get really pissy and disrespectful, to be perfectly blunt. He'd hit the button and say, this is Jack's delivery, or whatever the fuck his business name was. And then we'd say, and your name, sir, and your name is, sir? Barisuba. He would say it so fast that nobody could understand it. The site captain had even commented on this at one point, and that guy never commented on anything. Okay. All right. Fine. One day, after having dealt with this guy for several weeks, a few months, I think, I finally said, I have to write this down, and if you say it so fast that you can't understand it yourself, I can't possibly write it down. We never had any trouble with him about that after that. He still had a horrible attitude every single day. It was a bad attitude. But at least after that, he would say it so we could write it down. So here's a little pro tip for you. If you're saying something and somebody asks you to say it again, say it as you're writing it in the air, right? Mimic writing it down yourself so you're saying it slow enough that they can write it down. Or just write it down for them, right? It's just a little hint, a little advice for the future. Here's another comment on common courtesy. If your way of introducing yourself to complete fucking strangers, tell them to go fuck themselves, you are the problem in your universe. You need to work on that. Go fuck themselves is not necessarily a quote. All right? If your way of introducing yourself to a complete fucking stranger is to be disrespectful or anything other than actually polite, professional perhaps, all right, but polite about it. You are the problem in your universe. You need to work on that before you work on anything else. All right, I'm going to let that go for now. Last week, Iran's president died in a helicopter crash. Okay. He was flying in a helicopter crash. Okay. He was flying in a UH-1 Iroquois. Okay. As a Vietnam era Iroquois. Again, okay, get to the point, right? This is an ancient airframe that should have been retired over a decade ago, bare minimum. Rather than just own the fact that they were flying a plane that needed to be grounded so badly that it had been scrapped entirely, the Iranian government decided to blame the United States. Yeah, because our trade sanctions on Iran prevented them from getting spare parts. Yeah, no shit. You don't sell military equipment, or much of anything for that matter, to a country that has declared war on you. And make no mistake, Iran declared war on the United States the year of the so-called revolution. It was a junta is what it really was, but let's move on past that. In his infamous Great Satan speech, the Ayatollah Khomeini was declaring war on the United States. Now, I say Ayatollah Khomeini, I mean it. That is, whether he legitimately had that title or not, it was his title at this point. All right, and I'll apply that same rule to everybody else that you can think of, including President Biden. I have a little bit of trouble applying the titles to these people, even though it is their title now. But at any rate, you don't sell military equipment at all, and not much of anything at all, if you can avoid it, to a country that has declared war on you. It's just stupid. Don't be stupid. Give you an idea of how profoundly true the statement is. U.S. would not sell ball bearings, even though it's not military equipment, to Germany during World War II. After the war, we found that the German military was almost ground to a literal halt for a shortage of ball bearings. Now, yes, they were buying them through Switzerland, which was a neutral country and free to buy and sell any way they wanted. The neutrality of Switzerland was always kind of in name only, and we should have cut our sales to them off as well. Germany had one ball bearing factory left at the end of the war. That is how close to ending that ability to build ships and engines and tanks, especially, we had come. That factory was very heavily bunkered. It wasn't fortified, it was bunkered. Breaking that factory probably was not going to happen, but we had forced them to build it at such ridiculous expense that they couldn't do it again. They couldn't really expand it. It was going to be too expensive to do it, even with slave labor. Now, we have Iran having declared war on the United States, and here they are, pissy-faced that we're not selling them parts for the helicopters. Well, yeah, you're right, we're not going to, ever. Maybe they should have considered buying helicopters from their buddies in Russia. I'm just saying. Because at the time of the junta, Russia and what Russia was just giving guns and equipment to anybody that would say, yes, we are anti-American. If you could say, I'm anti-American, you were getting whatever you wanted. That's why AK-47s have killed more people than every other weapon on Earth. It's because the world is literally flooded with them. And when I say literally, I mean hundreds of millions of AKs out there. Most of them on both sides of various civil conflicts, various internal conflicts. Why Russia was giving guns to both sides is not always clear, or is, to more to the point, is never clear. But they were doing it. Now, if Iran needed helicopters so badly, I tell you what, Russia was giving away those hens for nothing. Most people don't realize this. Russia gave their puppet regime in Afghanistan something like a dozen Hind helicopters. These aren't cheap pieces of equipment, and they're giving it to a very, very shaky ally. I'm just saying. Iran, on the other hand, is not a shaky ally, and they didn't get any. Russia wouldn't sell them any any helicopters. Not buying it. So, to Ayatollah Khomeini, maybe you should think about how you're doing business. Just saying. That's a very polite way of telling him to go fuck himself. And yeah, I am the problem in my universe when it comes to Iran. Not even apologizing. All right. There's a lot of reeing and gnashing of teeth about U.S. aid to Iran and Israel. Ukraine and Israel. Foreign aid is not always just money we give you. When the U.S. gives you money, it's a bribe. It is just a straight out bribe. We want you to do X, Y, and Z thing for us. We gave a lot of money to various African countries for water development projects. Yeah, because we wanted them to do something for us. Mostly not be a Russian ally, so that Russia would station their troops in Ethiopia, Zaire, Rhodesia, Congo, fill in the blanks. That's what we really wanted out of them. Military aid is basically a loan. Well, it's not basically a loan. It is a loan. It started, the system that exists now, started during World War I. And during World War II, it was known as Lend-Lease, because that was the name of the law that Congress passed to allow this thing to happen. Roosevelt described it as, when your neighbor's house is on fire, you don't quibble about squabble, about the price of the hose. You just give it to them and let them pay you back later. And that's exactly what we did. We gave them old hoses, by the way, something like a dozen World War I and pre-World War I battleships, some submarines, technical assistance on building aircraft carriers, even though they were giving us a lot more technical assistance. That's the truth. Accept it. And planes. My God, have mercy, did we give them planes. Half of the British air fleet during World War II was American made. The really novel one was the Mustang. You should look into the history of that, but later. What we're giving Ukraine and Israel right now is a continuation of the Lend-Lease history. Now, I want to talk about Britain's Lend-Lease history for a moment. I remember 2003, I think it was, reading, or no, it was after that, 2008-ish, reading this really strange story in Time or wherever the fuck it was, about how Britain had just now finished paying their World War II debts to the U.S. Really? It had taken them this long to pay it all off? Wow. I did not see that coming at all. I really, really don't want to hear any more of this crap about free guns. Because they're not free. They're going to get paid for. It might take, especially Ukraine, 100 years to pay that off. But bear in mind that adjusted for inflation, the U.S. lent Britain as much money in 1 year as the U.S. has to Ukraine since 2014. That's well before that invasion. In fact, it was before the invasion of Crimea. The U.S. lending money to Ukraine was part of what precipitated the Crimean invasion. The Russians were pissed because the Ukrainian people wanted to join NATO and the EU and become formally part of those two organizations. Now, whatever your opinion of NATO and the EU is, and I got my own. I don't like the EU. I'm a lot more fond of NATO, but I don't like the EU at all. There's a whole lot that smells about that story. But it is the Ukrainian people's decision, not ours. We don't have a right to tell them how they are going to live their lives or ally themselves or anything else for that matter. And then the Ukrainian people say, we want to join the EU, we want to join NATO. And Russia invaded Crimea. Tried to topple the existing regime, tried to buttress the existing regime by massacring civilians. When I say massacring civilians, I mean massacres. People literally lined up and shot, Einsatzgruppen style. Most people aren't aware of this because the media didn't talk about that. They were trying to be diplomatic. They were trying to be friendly. Well, that's not how it works, Tim. Speaking of Tim, actually, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. I have a beef with basically all of the 2A advocacy groups. If you cannot be bothered to return an email, well, there's probably something wrong with your organizational structure. I guarantee you the case that's just about to go before the Supreme Court about assault weapons would be a non-starter for the states that are fighting this injunction. They would be trying to work this matter out quietly behind closed doors so that they don't have to fight this battle that they knew they would be losing if only the Supreme Court knew what was in my head. There's about a dozen or so people that know what's up here because I've taken it from here to writing. I put ink to paper. It's a basic definition, well, not definition, explanation that becomes a definition by default of the difference between an assault weapon and a machine gun and literally anything else. Now, if you've been around the channel a while, you know the difference. I'm not going to belabor the point. Every single one of those groups has received money from me. I turned to them to ask them for help with getting this 200-word document in front of the justices. all 9 of them, obviously. To date, I have only had one reply. One. Mr. Prince. Oh, dear. I forgot his first name, which is very funny because he asked me to refer to him by his first name. He said, Mr. Prince is my father's name. Oh, well, okay. He's a friend of Ghost Tactical. That's how I found him, actually. He's an attorney out of New York, and he told me the truth, and I didn't like it. Well, okay, that's my problem, not his. I could never afford to file this on my own. Now, he did actually say that maybe I should talk to, and he said a couple of names, and I did try reaching out to them. The only response out of any of them I have ever gotten is a particular organization that I very publicly said, why do you not respect your members? Why do you not return messages? It was very public call out. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, what? Tell us what's going on. We need to know. I really had this feeling in my gut that I was wasting my time, but you know what? It's my time to waste. I'll do it. I'll give them this one last chance. I reached out to them again with an email to the address that they said to use. I got one response. Just one. Yes, we've received it. There's another one. And it's not a surprise to me now to discover that certain people, they hate me and I hate them in the 2A sphere, is all basically their employee by de facto employees. It's very sad. We have a third mutual that I do like them as an organization, whatever. Not only do they not respond to the emails, but in 2019, just before I started hearing about this new thing going on in China with people dying, but I don't know why. Oh, it's the new flu. I don't know. Okay, flu usually starts there. That's usually the bellwether for what's going to happen, right? I tried calling them. I remember I was sitting in the parking lot outside Shasta County VA Center waiting for Papa Carey to come out, and just kind of on a whim I tried calling them up, and all I got was run around. Oh, well, this and that and something else, and maybe if you resubmit it, maybe we could take a look. Well, could you give me a specific email address so I can send it to them? Because in my head, I already knew. It goes to the spam folder first, because it's not something they were expecting to get. No, you can just send it to the public desk. Well, okay. I'm still waiting for them to even call me back. There's another one. I actually tried going to their offices. Could not find the office. I was hand walking this document in. Right? I tried calling their offices because I kind of figured out it's this door here most likely, because all the other doors around it have names on them, and this one doesn't. I called them up to verify, which door is this? All I got was hem and haw and not going to answer. Well, I figured out where they stood. I want to emphasize something. I cut them off just as assuredly as I cut the NRA off. I cut the NRA off about a year before the LaPierre scandal actually hit. Had nothing to do with him. Had everything to do with the fact that I asked them for help. They're the ones I will name. I asked them for help with this situation that I had, this letter to the Supreme Court that I had. Still haven't gotten a response. And unfortunately, I'm also a life member, so I'm still a member of the NRA, whether I kind of want to be or not. Speaking of which, if you cannot take a message from a dues-paying member, you don't deserve to be in business. It really is as simple as that. Is the NRA turning around? Slow down. You're assuming a lot based on information, not in evidence. I do not for a moment believe the NRA is actually turning around. Right? Yes, they did have this new slate of directors. Okay, great. That's a good thing. I also do not believe that this new slate of directors is going to turn anything around. All right? It's a culture. It is an ingrained culture with long history of contracts and connections and personal connections that say that not a whole lot is going to happen for a very, very long time, or ever. Even with this new slate, well, as one guy who didn't get elected put it, it's irreparably broken. They didn't elect him. Way to prove his point. Congratulations. You just proved everything he said was true. It's not going to turn around for a very, very long time. It's basically corruption at the most basic possible level. And corruption takes a full generation being born and dying to the last member before it can be rooted out. It's got to be rooted. The last person born under the old system where the corruption officially still existed is born, has to die of old age, and then it's still going to take another generation or two, because that last person born under the old system will hear the stories about the glories of the old system, pass those on to their children, possibly their grandchildren. Those children and grandchildren are going to hear the old stories about how great Stalinist Russia was, because there was bread in every home, right? They're not going to hear about the work camps. They're not going to hear death camps, really. They're not going to hear about that. They're not going to hear about the long lines, the shortages, the massacres. They're only going to hear what their ancestor, who heard the stories from their ancestor, told them. Give somebody 10 years of true communism, and believe me, they will overthrow their government. There were multiple attempts to overthrow Stalin. Unfortunately, Stalin had the military locked up tighter than a drum. I'm old enough to remember watching Tiananmen Square live and hearing the gunshots. This isn't the version you're going to find on YouTube or BitChute or Rumble or any one of those other platforms. This isn't what CNN or Headline News or any of the others are going to tell you. I was seeing the raw live feed from some reporter's balcony. I remember I couldn't actually see what was going on. It was dark. But we could hear what sounded like gunshots. And Dad, what the hell is that? It's a massacre, son. What do you mean it's a massacre? They wouldn't really do that. Ooh, Mom didn't like that at all. Dirty little Carrie secret is, back in the 80s, my parents got into the satellite. We got into satellites. The original satellite dish is still set up at the back of Placer House. It's falling apart, and I'm not sure why they don't take it down, but Dad refuses to because Mom refused to for nostalgia reasons. It doesn't matter. Let me move on. We weren't seeing CNN's live feed to the studio. We were seeing CNN's live feed from their field reporters or CBS or NBC or whoever the hell it was. I don't even know. I don't care. We were seeing their reporters live feed to New York or Atlanta or Los Angeles or wherever the fuck it was that it was supposed to go to. We knew at least a couple hours before anybody else did that there was a massive shooting. We're talking a couple hundred rounds, bare minimum. Try telling me that didn't happen. It's unfortunate that we didn't have it hooked up to VCR or something, or we didn't have the presence of mind to roll a VCR. I don't know what it was we didn't do at that point, but we didn't do it, and we would have evidence that it happened, and you can't tell us we didn't see what we saw. Okay. Red pill grifters. There is a certain element of the manosphere that are just grifters. They don't believe a word of what they're saying. I don't believe half of them are telling the truth, even about 1/3 of what they're saying. There's one in particular I have in mind. He got Exiled Lioness's channel nuked. She'll tell you, no, that didn't happen, but yeah, her channel got nuked just after his ambush interview. So yeah, that's what happened. They will tell you anything that they think you want to hear in order to get you to give them money on their Cash App or their Patreon or their Subscribe store, whatever the fuck it is. The one I'm thinking of, all he really is a misogynist who can't get laid. Well, you know what? If I were a woman, I wouldn't want to sleep with him either. Just no. This guy gives every single warning sign of being a future rapist. Or maybe a past rapist. I don't know. Maybe it's already happened. But he's managed to bury that part of his history. That could be. I don't care. It actually is none of my business at the end of the day. His followers, I've talked to some of them, even backstage. Or off interviews. There's one in particular that not only would, if I were a woman, I would not want to sleep with him, but if I were a non-U.S. citizen woman looking to get to the United States, he would be the first person I avoided like a plague. There is everything creepy about him and nothing to like. Especially when you get him backstage and he uses some language you'd be shocked. I was not shocked because I use all of that language myself. But I'm honest about it. Right? And yes, cum dumpster is the very high language compared to this guy. Not surprising seeing where he gets his cue from. A basement-dwelling, self-hating homo who has never gotten laid in his life. Doesn't know what women are, except people to be hated. And this is what you're taking your directions from. This is your guru. kind of interesting. This guy will bash Jack shit. Yeah, I can't remember. Murphy. Jack Murphy. This guy will bash Jack Murphy up one side and down the other for telling the truth about exactly what he was. Now, granted, Jack didn't exactly advertise some of his previous history, or at least that's what I'm led to believe. I don't know. I'd never heard of Jack Murphy before the second half of that scandal hit. Correction. I heard one person say, "We really need to talk about Jack Murphy." I said, "Who? Who the fuck is this guy?" Well, he's been involved in all these things. Okay, but who is he? I didn't know. I actually did not know. Well, then I come to find, what the second half of the scandal is. Well, the blowout on Elijah and Sydney's channel. You know where that channel went, so let's move on. That was the first I really, it sunk in, something was going on. I should maybe look into it. And I still didn't. I waited until somebody basically showed me what was going on. That's not fair. I did ask, who is this guy and why should I care? And nobody was giving me an answer. And then the blowout on whatever the hell the name of the channel was happened. I said, okay, who is this guy and why should I give a flying fuck? That was actually the words I used. I know that's when I'm usually pretty fucking ticked off and I'm getting ready to call you a liar. Right? I'm tired of the bullshit. Tell me why I should give a fuck or shut the fuck up. So then I finally got an answer. Oh yeah, he was involved in all these things and this is his organization. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it's been about a year and a half now and I'm still trying to understand why I should care. He said, I started at this end of the spectrum and I ended up on that end of the spectrum. Right? There's a reason why all drug addict counselors are former drug addicts themselves. Oh, well, all of them, all the ones you will find today, were drug addicts at one time. Some of them relapse back into addiction and while being a counselor are fighting their addiction, going through rehab themselves. It happens. They're usually suspended during that time frame, but some of the sketchier outfits will kind of blind eye let them continue as long as it's behind closed doors. They don't tell you that part. Now we've got this red pill grifter. He's not selling red pills. He's selling black pills that he painted red because he knew that his followers wanted to hear 304s and all women can't be trusted, blah, blah, blah. He knows it's all bullshit. But he's doing it anyway. And no, I don't blame women for not wanting to touch you guys with a 10-foot pole. In fact, I'd give them a 20-foot pole just to see if they could even touch you with that. You deserve every bit of the hate you get. And I hope you get more of it. Find a permanent solution to the temporary problem. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. All right. And I'm going to close with this one. If you have familial ties to Russia, stop now. Hit this back button, walk away. Familial ties, for some of you don't know this word. It means family. All right? So now you know a new word. Familial. All right. Enough condescension. Let's move on. If you have familial ties to Russia, hit the stop button, hit the back button. Everything I'm about to say has nothing to do with you. I would never, ever, ever ask somebody to turn on their own family. The most I will ask you to do is just stop talking entirely. And yes, this is about Russia and Ukraine. Okay, 3, 2, 1. If you have those familial ties and you are still here, you did this to yourself. Don't come crying to me. Don't even speak to me. Don't speak about me. You did this to yourself and you deserve it. Okay, let's go. We all knew that in 1999, or maybe it was 91, when Russia broke up and turned Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, and I forgot the last one. When they turned them all loose, we all knew that something was coming down the line. Right? No, I didn't know what it was. Nobody knew what it was. But we all knew that there was a reason why Russia was pulling their nukes out of those countries. You don't pull weapons out of an allied country unless there's a pretty good reason for it. The U.S. pulled our nukes out of Turkey as part of the deal that got nukes out of Cuba. That's the only one I'm really aware of. The fact that they were pulling those weapons out, that was pretty much a sign that something is going the wrong direction here. Flash forward to 2013, really, is when talk of, 2012 is the first time I heard there were things going on in Ukraine and I didn't care about. Talk of joining EU has started. I don't really care. And then a couple of years later, the Euromaidan revolt happened. Now, there are certain people, Robert Barnes in particular, who keep talking about the Euromaidan coup. No. The coup was the so-called election that got his predecessor. Forget his name. The coup was the so-called election that got him back in office. That was an election in name only, right? That was more rigged than the 2020 election, and we all were seeing it live, right? Ballots being run through a second and third time. Down in Maricopa County, where very mysteriously ballots couldn't be read in certain counties, Maricopa County in particular, because of the type of ink being used. People like me who have been disenfranchised since 2004. Yeah, 2004. Very mysteriously, my ballot was late the first time, late the second time, after being promised it would never happen again. And then the third time, this is 2012, Barack's re-election, when I got called for jury duty a week before the election, and I tell them I'm military out of state, and they say, oh, well, we'll just disenroll you then. If you can't report for jury duty, we'll disenroll you. Are you fucking kidding me? I have 1 week to put in for leave to come down there and tell you that I can't be here because I'm needed back at my unit 2 days drive away. Is this some sort of joke? I want to emphasize something. Yes, I could make the trip in a 24-hour period. I would have to drive from my unit to Shasta County. That's a whole day. So I can't be there the day I'm supposed to report. I'm going to have to be there the day before, bare minimum. Walk into the courtroom, even if I'm the first person they talk to, which I absolutely would have made happen by showing up in my Bravos. Illegal? Yeah. Okay. And that's going to get the judge's attention. I want to talk to that juror first. Come here, stupid. Why are you here in uniform illegally? Your Honor, I really wanted to make sure you noticed I'm military out of state, and that lady over there, or her representative, I don't know who it was, said that if I don't show up, I'm getting disenrolled for voting. Oh, that would have blown up some things. And then I would have to spend another 12 hours driving home. So I'm not doing it that day. I am not pulling into the station at 2000 hours just to get 1 day off on my leave. No. Okay, I got a little off topic here. I do that a lot. That's why I need a partner for the streams. But anyway, all right, so the so-called election from, I think it was 2010, that was rigged, just rigged, right? Those ballots were already filled out before they were mailed or something out. The Ukrainian people were saying in 2012, we want to join the EU. And, you know, they may not have been saying we want to join NATO, but they were saying we want to join the EU. I remember thinking, why the hell would you want to join them? Whatever. You know what? At the end of the day, it's none of my business. I had a Facebook friend who has unfortunately since passed away, who brought this to my attention. I know he did, because about a month and a half ago, I went through his timeline. It's in legacy mode, but everything is there. And, oh, yep, there it is. And there's my reply. This is before mandatory carry is a thing, obviously. Well, yeah, well, it said, I wouldn't let them join the EU either if I were some outside influence. I wouldn't let them join EU if I was the EU. And why do they want to join that corrupt body anyways? His response was, well, they're just as corrupt. And he used the words birds of a feather. Oh, okay. Well, okay. I continued arguing with him for a long time after that, but it is what it is now. This song and dance, this magical story about Russia is defending themselves, it's complete and utter bullshit. They tried to topple the legitimate Ukrainian government by rigging the election. That's where the Euromaidan protests began. This question about whether the U.S. gave support to the Euromaidan protests? Maybe, maybe not. I haven't seen the evidence. I can't say it doesn't exist. But it was not a coup by any stretch of the imagination, and Robert Barnes in particular is just flat out lying to you. He knows that's not the way it happened, but he's telling you that's the way it happened anyways, because that line's his pocketbook. That is literally the way he makes his money. That is his the bread, or the butter on his bread. Now, how he's getting that money, I don't know. I don't care. But yeah, he is absolutely lying to you. An attorney who lies. What a shocking development, huh? This has never been about protecting anybody. This has been about reclaiming the country that they had invaded 250 years earlier. I'd like to point something out. The American Revolution happened before Russia invaded Ukraine, before Catherine the Great and Gregory Potemkin sailed down the Volga. Was it the Volga? I think it was the Volga. To review her new possession, her new colonial possession that was going to become part of the empire. Between the invasion in 1780 something, and independence in 1999, or was it 91? It had been essentially a slave state. Stalin's genocide against the Ukrainians should have been enough to raise international concerns, but with everybody trying to pretend that the Holocaust wasn't happening, now was not a good time to point out the literal horrors that Stalin was committing in Ukraine. He was stealing everything made of metal or wheat, specifically to depopulate the region. And boy, did he succeed. We'll never know for sure. But the actual numbers for the Ukrainian genocide of the 1930s is probably as high as the actual numbers of the Holocaust. And to give you an idea, most historians say that the Holocaust was at least twice as bad as the official record says. The prosecutors at Nuremberg said all they could verify was 12 million, and that it was probably much higher, as much as twice. I believe that was the British prosecutor who used the words as much as twice. Ooh. And those of you who've been defending Russia's invasion now, when the ones who aren't just Holocaust deniers, like Nick Fuentes, are literally one spelling mistake, punctuation mistake, away from becoming Holocaust deniers. I'm talking about you, Lauren Chen. Yeah. I'm actually having a hard time telling the difference. It's more like the sort of people who say, well, it wasn't really a genocide because nobody liked them anyway. Or whatever. You know, what a crazy-ass excuse you want to give. You know, I got to give Kevin Flanagan, of all the people on earth, I got to give Kevin Flanagan a little bit of credit here. Yes, he's a Holocaust denier. Yes, he's lying through his teeth. But at least his lie that the Holocaust happened because of because turning the Jews as as an enemy of the German people, which they hadn't been until they started getting interred. And that it was starvation and other depredations caused by the bombing campaign. At least he was able to take one partial fact in turning an enemy population and one actual real fact, bombing campaign, put them together to make a plausible lie. Don't even bother telling me, yes, that's what happened. If that's what had happened, Göring in particular, and Donitz in particular, would have stood on that in that witness stand and said, no, that never happened, or no, that's not the way it happened. Donitz, being the successor to Hitler, and actually innocent of the Holocaust per se, as the commander of the Navy, so no authority to influence that one way or another, would have been particularly interested in trying to say, no, that didn't happen. And instead, all he did was say, yeah, all that happened. That's not on me. I had nothing to do with it. I got this job out of nowhere and I didn't ask for it. Göring, in particular, was called out on it for attempting to interfere. Göring, in particular, could have gotten away with a whole lot more. He could have gotten all of them, or at least all the ones he wanted, completely off the hook by merely saying, yeah, I signed the document, and Hitler warned me that if I ever tried to interfere with him again, or interfere with his plans again, he would have me in the camps next. And then he turned around and said the same thing to Goebbels and Keitel and Donitz. The only person I can point to and say was enthusiastic in this process was Himmler. You'll need to talk to him. Good luck. Pause. Himmler was dead at this point. He committed suicide as soon as he realized the jig was up and he was not only captured, but known. He bit down on a cyanide tablet disguised as a tooth, or disguised in a tooth or something like that. We'll never know the whole story there because the records have been sealed for 100 years as national security. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, moving on. Lauren, I'm glad to see that you are standing by the convictions of your beliefs. Apparently to you, the Holocaust didn't really happen, or didn't happen the way history says it happened, how the official records say it happened, how German records say it happened. It's amazing. Okay. I would love to hear you explain this, but you're never going to, because of course you're too good for us lowly peons. Congratulations. I said those with familial ties to Russia back out now. I would never ask somebody to turn on their own family. The least, though, that the rest of you could do is just stop defending the Holocaust, the new Holocaust, and stop defending the new Nazi empire. That's the truth. Germany today is more of Italy in the 1930s and 40s. Although they are it's not a 1-1 analogy. Italy of the 1930s and 40s was very, very weak as a country. I have never heard anybody successfully argue that Russia today is weak. Yes, they're taking a whole lot of a beating in a country that should have taken only 3 days to overrun and 3 weeks to secure. Well, 3 months, really. That's not a weak country, and I'll fight anybody that wants to continue with that kind of really stupid lie. But yeah, it's not Germany of the 1930s and 40s. They're not nearly as strong, and they are not the lead, the senior partner in this deal. The senior partner in that deal is a little bit south of them. Talk about that some other day. The least you can do is stop defending the Nazis of today. It's not that hard. All you have to do is just shut the fuck up and stop talking about something you obviously don't know anything about. See, I'm not a physicist. I'm an enthusiastic amateur about long-term human survival, which means space flight eventually. But I don't sit here and try and tell Dr. Kaku how FTL drives work and how warp drives work. Not even in the context of the fictional universe, because I know I don't know enough to know what I don't know. The closest I've ever come is he did say something about lightsabers that, well, okay, that's great and all, but what about this other idea that I've heard floated? And some jackass took exception to it. Well, it's okay. There's a reason why you can't look at another channel's history now. Okay, well, it is what it is. That guy is that guy is an example of people who would stalk other channels by looking at their history and seeing where they'd gone so they could just harass these people. That's what he did here. He also was brazen enough to lie straight to my face about my brother's in the army and we take the guns out and we shoot the guns and they're fun, but they're not needed. Yeah, unless his brother committed is an actual felon, that didn't happen. It's as simple as that. But anyway, just stop talking about a subject you clearly don't know anything about. All right. I pray that some of you will finally get your fucking heads out of your asses before you literally start goose stepping down Pennsylvania Avenue. Well, let's see if that happens. In the meantime, keep calm and mandatory carry on.